Hey everyone, and welcome back to Bridging the Gap. Make sure to leave a like on this video down below and subscribe. My name is Alvin. I lean right on most issues, and I'll be representing the Republican side.
Hey, my name is Luke. I lean left on most issues, and I'll be representing the Democratic side. Now, in this video, we'll be looking at the 2022 governor elections across the country and making our predictions.
So yeah, we've already put in some safe states that we think there's no need for discussion. We're going to go through the rest of the safe states that we think should have some mentioning. This is our September prediction, and we'll go into now our October prediction with only 1 month left until Election Day. So here we go. Let's start out with a few safe Republican states.
Yep. Okay, let's start with Vermont and New Hampshire real fast. These both have either extremely liberal or moderate Republican governors, which are very popular in the states of Vermont and New Hampshire. Phil Scott and Kristen Sununu are both largely expected to win by margins over 10, and yeah, they'll be fine this cycle.
Yep. And then we have two more safe Republican governors, which are going to be in the usually competitive states of Iowa and Ohio. Both have popular governors as well, and they're going to outperform the 2020 presidential margin and win over 10 points in Kim Reynolds and Mike DeWine.
Yeah, both of them have been polling over 10 points and seem in great positions for this election. And now to our next race, we'll be looking at Colorado for the Democrats. Now, in this race, Jared Polis has been polling extremely well. He's been outpolling the Senate candidate there, Michael Bennet, the Democratic's incumbent senator. Jared Polis has been doing really well in polling, and I think we can both agree that he's going to win this by over 10.
Yeah, I think with those shifts in the Denver area as well. I mean, I personally already put the Senate race into the safe column, and Polis is a shoo-in to win over 10, in my opinion. And then we have the state of Connecticut, which in 2018 it had a close race, but since then the governor has gotten a lot more popular. The Republican is not going to do that well in Connecticut this year, and I think the incumbent governor is likely to win by over 10 points, although potentially could get within 10. It's just more likely than not that it's over 10.
Yeah, Ned Lamont, the governor of Connecticut, I believe he was rated the most popular Democratic governor in the country this summer by Morning Consult. I think he's in a great position to win. He's been polling very well against his former 2018 rival who got it close. But yeah, I think he's definitely going to win. But now we're going to go into some more interesting races here that may be much closer. Let's look at Rhode Island.
Yeah, so Rhode Island is probably the last state on this map that is really considered for the safe category fully. And Rhode Island had a very interesting primary result. Looking at this primary result, the incumbent governor, Dan McKee, he was the lieutenant governor before the former governor, Gina Raimondo, got selected to serve in the Biden administration, and he obviously became governor. And this guy doesn't seem to be doing well. In his primary, he could not manage to win over a third of the primary vote as an incumbent governor, and he did not run up the margins in Providence, which obviously, you need to do in Rhode Island as a Democrat. This guy doesn't seem to be in the best position to win re-election.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, his primary performance was pretty pathetic for an incumbent governor. And also, we should note his approval ratings. Like the last approval poll I saw by Morning Consult in over the summer showed his approval at 38%, the lowest of any governor in the nation. And so, part of this could be because he's former lieutenant governor, and he had to fit in a new role. But I mean, as we've talked about this before, as we've seen in Kathy Hochul, she came in midterm and her approval's fine. This does not seem to be the case for Dan McKee, and he's been doing pretty bad in that approval rating. But I think in the end of the day, this is still Rhode Island, a very liberal, and the Republican candidate isn't really anything special.
Yeah.
So I think personally for me, I think it'll still be above 10, but I mean, we should keep an eye on this for November.
Yeah, and just one more thing to mention, we have this one poll by Echelon Insights, who is not the best pollster, probably one of the worst pollsters in the nation. But they do have Dan McKee up 30. I think that's not something to just, not look at. I think Dan McKee's still winning above 10 for now, but in our final predictions in November, this might turn into something under 10. So there we go.
Okay, so how about the Republican likely states now?
Yeah, so we'll go to the likely Republican states. I think we should first start off with Texas, which I think is the most close to safe Republican state, but we'll still go into likely probably for both of us here. They just hosted their gubernatorial debate. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, it was an interesting debate. I watched this in the car, like on our way up to Vermont. It was nice. Like it was nice to see Beto and Abbott have a debate, and I think both candidates did really well, especially Beto O'Rourke on the topic of abortion. Do I think it'll significantly shift the race? I don't think so. Like personally, and as we've seen in recent polling, I think Abbott is like quite ahead in Texas right now. I mean, he's been leading in every poll by like decent margins between 5 and 10. I think Abbott will take this by a margin between 5 and 10, and that's why I think it should be likely. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's probably closer to 10, if I'm being honest. And this one is even a candidate for the safe column in the next prediction. This one's going to be a likely Republican.
Okay.
And then,
So
yeah,
maybe next.
Southeast.
Oh, I think next we do Alaska here. Man.
Okay, we can do Alaska.
Okay. So like Alaska, we have incumbent Governor Dan Sullivan going up against two big candidates, the former governor, Bill Walker, an independent, and Les Gara, a Democrat. I believe she was a state legislator, but I'm not 100% sure on that. Okay, in most polling, we see oh, sorry, not Dan Sullivan. It's Mike Dunleavy,
Yeah.
is the incumbent governor. Okay, my fault. Okay, Mike Dunleavy here. He's been leading in most polls. I think what we've seen in these like ranked choice voting polls so far, and what we kind of saw in the jungle primaries in Alaska this summer, is Dunleavy is generally like expected to make it to the final round and be ahead. But the closeness of this race depends on who makes it second, because this is ranked choice voting here. So if Les Gara makes it to that second round and in a 1v1 with Dunleavy, she would lose. Like it'd be a 10+ race. But as we've seen in one-on-one polls between Bill Walker and Dunleavy, if Bill Walker, the independent former governor, makes it into this final round, it could be a lean race between 1 and 5. So I think for me, this is an election that's middle of the ground, between the two, between 5 and 10 points. I think it'll be a likely race. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it'll be likely our race too. We've learned from the Alaska special election that ranked choice voting makes a difference. And even though in the primary, if you add up all the Republican votes, I think it does put Dunleavy over 50%. If Bill Walker does become the second round favorite here over Les Gara, there is a chance for him to take it. I don't think it's a good move to put it into solid. So I agree with you. Let's put this one into likely R. And then now we'll finally go to Georgia and Florida, which are also likely R in my opinion. They both have different stories though. In Florida,
let's do Florida.
Yeah, let's do Florida. Obviously we have Ron DeSantis. Everyone knows Ron DeSantis in Florida, and he's popular. His policies are popular. He's been doing well. He's been energizing the base and getting independents to go for him. We've seen the Hispanic shifts in Florida, and Democrats don't necessarily have a star candidate here. I think this one's just likely Republican, and DeSantis is likely to win by closer to 10 than closer to 5.
Yeah, Ron DeSantis has been doing very solidly in the polling. Former Republican governor, I should mention, who's running as a Democrat, Charlie Crist, isn't been doing so well. He hasn't been doing so well in the polling, and he's generally like an unimpressive candidate. Like he's like I think I've mentioned this before. He's like more of a. He reminds me of like Biden. Like he's kind of just like bland. There's no like energy. Like you see in like Bernie Sanders or like Fetterman. Like it's just like I think it's pretty safe to say that DeSantis is going to take this.
Yes, even with the new Siena College poll coming in, right, fairly recently before we made this video, just confirming that, yeah, this one's going to be likely Republican. And
Okay.
speaking of
Oh,
star candidates, though, we have Stacey Abrams in Georgia, so go ahead.
okay. Yeah, this one is interesting. Okay, I've been like thinking to myself, like, is this lean? Is this like that? I've been in the middle more recently because okay, like a recent Emerson poll put like Kemp at like 4.9, like right on the border, and a few polls have had it generally in that border region, maybe slightly leaning toward Kemp being like uh more in the likely region. Like I'm talking like six, maybe seven, but like I think generally Kemp's leading by around 5 points here. Stacey Abrams obviously is like star of the Democratic Party in Georgia. She helped give the Democrats those key wins in 2021 that handed us the Senate and even the presidency in 2020. I don't know. I feel like the energy factor could lean from Abrams could make this a lean race, but I think generally, Kev's been doing quite well. He's been pulling over over around 50 in some cases. So I don't know. I think I'm leaning toward putting this in that likely column here. What do you
Yeah,
think?
I agree. Also, something important to know, almost all the September polling we got was all registered voters. And in Georgia, the likely voter polls usually favor Kemp more. The University of Georgia poll, which was really accurate on the presidential level in 2020, has Kemp up 8. And I think personally, Kemp's just probably winning by over 5 for now. We did have that recent scandal that might affect him with Herschel Walker, right? Which has hurted Herschel Walker's chances
Image.
in
Yeah.
to last night and into today, which could hurt Kemp as well. But I think for now it's better for us to put Kemp in likely. So there we go, likely Republican. That's all the likely Republican states. So I guess we should move on to the likely Democrat states.
Oh yeah, I would just like to know. Also, we're already at 25 states with the Republicans. They already have half the states. It's crazy. Anyway, let's look for the look at the Democratic states here. Where do you want to start?
I think
Maybe
actually we should go with Michigan.
Michigan. Okay. So here Gretchen Whitmer has been doing quite well in polling against Republican Tudor Dixon. I mean, in our last reading, we had this. We put this in the likely column. And since then, Whitmer has just kind of shown that like she can consistently pull above 50. Like a few polls have her like even 10 points above Tudor Dixon here. So I don't know. This is crazy. For Michigan, I think you'd expect this to be far closer, but I think after the chaos in the Republican primaries, just Whitmer's completely taken advantage of that and is in a great position to win re-election. I mean, even Trafalgar, a Republican pollster, has her up 6. So I think this is definitely likely going to the Democrats here, like by 5 to 10 points. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. Something important to note, we should not forget the polling error in the Midwest in 2020, but Trafalgar does have it Whitmer plus 6, and I think Whitmer plus 7 to 8 or 8 to 9 is really likely here, which is why I wanted to go to Michigan first, because I actually think out of all the likely states, this one is the most safe for the Democrats. So pretty
Okay.
hot take there, but Michigan into the likely call.
Okay.
The next, yeah.
I think from there we should go to PA because again we have another Democrat in a swing state doing quite well. Like so in Pennsylvania we have Attorney General Josh Shapiro going up against MAGA Republican Doug Mastriano. So like Doug Mastriano is extremely radical, like full ban on abortion, 0 exceptions for life, for nothing. Man does not care. That is, and also I should mention he has radical positions in terms of like democracy too. Like he says, I believe he said he would have like he would just award electors to the president that he supports. Like not even not even taking in consideration who Pennsylvanians actually voted for. Like, it's a flat out anti-democratic candidate. Um, but focusing on the race itself, Josh Shapiro has been taking advantage of this radical Republican he's running against, and it's clear in polling that he's leading in by a very good margin. I mean, some polls even put him above 10, similar to Gretchen Whitmer. I think he's in a great position to win this race here, and I think it'll be by a margin between 5 and 10.
Yeah, so something also I'd like to add to that. I did not see him say that, but if you read it, it's probably true. If you read it on a reputable source, but anyways, I think something that's really concerning for Doug Mastriano here, as people want to blame the polls, in Pennsylvania, sure, go ahead. But if you look at the Senate race, right, Dr. Oz has been narrowing it up in every single pollster that's done more than one poll in this race since August into October or late September. And Mastriano has not been doing that in his own polls. Shapiro has been consistently leading by 10 or so in the polls. And even though Dr. Oz has been getting those independents to, sort of shift over to him, he's been riling up the base, doing rallies, whatever. Mastriano has not seen that type of support, and he's been polling around 40%. So I think, if anything, this one could go into safe for
you're
Democrats.
right. Yeah.
Into November. I think it's really important to compare the two races here. Even with the polling error, it's sort of difficult to see how there's such a large gap between Oz and Mastriano. I think this one is likely Democrat for sure.
Yeah, I mean, even in the future, I think this one could even go to a win above 10 points and even into that solid / safe column.
Yeah.
I mean, in the future, well, I mean, we'll see. But right now, I think we're putting it in the likely.
Yeah.
Okay, where to next?
Unlikely. So I think let's go to Minnesota next.
Okay. Do you want to talk about this one?
Yeah, sure. I mean, in this one, we have Tim Walz against Scott Jensen. Both of them are just standard candidates. There's really nothing special about them. Something more special about Minnesota is that legal weed party, right? And other things that are important to note are, third-party candidates, etc., like the legal weed party. But the legal weed party hasn't been doing so hot in the polls for some reason recently. And it seems like Tim Walz is building up his lead. I don't know, this one is probably more to the right than Michigan and Pennsylvania, in my opinion. But I think Walz is still likely to win this above 5. I think Walz has been leading Jensen, and the undecideds are probably likely to break for Walz. In Minnesota, they are sort of weird up there, with their third parties and whatnot. But I think at the end of the day, Walz is still going to win by just a tad above 5.
Yeah, I would agree. I think Tim Walz is in a good position to win re-election here. As for the legal weed party, and I believe they have 2 marijuana parties up in Minnesota. I don't really. I think a reason why they could be getting less support in polling compared to how they performed in 2020 could be because the Republican legislator accidentally legalized edible weed accidentally, which I find very interesting, but that's a story for another time. But I think for this, we're putting this race in likely.
Yeah, this one is going to go into likely Democrat. And then we have Maine, which is, in my opinion, the final likely Democrat state. Although there is a case to be made for New Mexico. I'm not sure if you want to go there. Though we have Maine here, so Maine has been quite interesting. I think their gubernatorial debate is tonight, so we'll see how that shakes up this race. LePage really needs to go on the attack tonight as a former governor, and maybe make some attacks on Mills on the economy or whatnot. But he needs to make an attack tonight because he is falling from in the polls. It's pretty obvious that since the earlier parts of 2022 into September, he has not been doing well. Mills has been polling over 50%, especially in that Emerson poll. And I think Mills is poised to take this around 7 or so.
Yeah, I think Janet Mills is very well positioned to win this race. Paul LePage has, he's positioned himself really close to Trump. I believe he said he was the Trump before Trump. I don't think that would play well in a state Trump lost by 9 points in 2020. Additionally, Janet Mills is a more moderate Democrat, and I think she could definitely appeal to those moderates, like as we saw in the polling. She's polling above and around 50%. So I think in all likelihood she will win this race. So let's put this in likely.
This one's likely. Yeah, and I think you should go ahead and give your opinions on New Mexico.
Okay, New Mexico, I'm not too sure about here. Like I'm between putting it in likely margin, putting it in a lean margin. So we have Michelle Lujan Grisham versus former Senate candidate. He was a Senate candidate in 2020, Mike Ronchetti. Now, I watched a bit of the debate. I believe it was a few days ago. Mike Ronchetti. I mean, I don't know, man. Like he performed well. Like I mean, the man is like very energetic. Very like he's younger on the younger side. You know, I don't know. I think in the polling, like if we look at some of the polling, it's like in that region between likely and lean. I believe one of the most accurate pollsters in New Mexico in 2020 put Lujan Grisham up 7. I don't know. Well, I think this one could be a likely race. Because it is in the end still a lean Democrat state in New Mexico, like more liberal, and I think the abortion issue could get the turnout to make this a likely race. But I mean, what's your opinion?
Yeah, so I'll give my case on why I think this one is likely. In our last prediction, we had it unlikely, and a few polls came out that are sort of shifting it. And there's a few reasons why I think this one is in lean. So first, Lujan Grisham is polling at 48% or lower. She's not really broken 50% just yet as an incumbent, which is not that great of a showing, especially in a state like New Mexico. And in New Mexico, I think Biden won it by around, like 10 or so, right? And Ronchetti overperformed Biden, or overperformed Trump, I meant to say, in the state. And with the national environment being to the right of 2020, Ronchetti still probably outperforming the national environment in New Mexico. And Lujan Grisham not being the strongest governor here, and the polling sort of showing signs that this could be going to closer race than some might expect. I think this one is into lean.
Okay, but when we look at Ronchetti in 2020, I should just note he wasn't running against an incumbent that cycle. So I mean that could have factored into it being a closer race. I believe he was running against a different Lujan. Or am I losing losing my mind
sure
here?
On that one.
Is it Ben Ray Lujan? Oh, I don't know. I'm not 100% sure. But I do know that Senate race, he was not running against an incumbent. So that could have been why it was closer. I don't know. Okay, I'll go with you here because I'm not 100% sure. So let's put this in the lean column.
This one is lean for now. Next prediction, it could obviously change. And then we have the close 5. I guess you could call it the 5 races that are really, really close to cycle. A lot of the other, it's funny because all these races that we've already covered seem to be pretty solidly for one side or the other. Even New Mexico, I would say, is probably like just a tad below 5 for Lujan Grisham. But the rest of these 5 states are extremely close between the two candidates, and this cannot be understated. I think the least close of these that we should start with is Wisconsin, but anywhere you want to go is fine with me.
Yeah, let's do Wisconsin first. Okay, in Wisconsin we have Tony Evers, the incumbent Democrat, running up against Tim Michels. Now, I mean, polling has been kind of mixed matched recently. Tony Evers has been doing better than the Democratic Senate candidate as of recently, which I find interesting. I think just because of the national environment, being more neutral and Democrats, Wisconsin's was barely went to the Democrats in 2020, and it's definitely going to be the right to the 2020 to the right of 2020. So this year, I don't know. I think Tim Michaels does take this, but by how much? Like I'm debating whether to put this into a tilt margin or a lean margin. Um, what's your call?
Yeah, so in my opinion, this one is going to be a lean Republican, just barely. I think Michael's going to win by around two here. And the reason for that is while the polling has been mismatched, we do see Ron Johnson doing better than Tim Michaels here. And probably that is due to Tony Evers being an incumbent. Although, I think something important to note is that the polling error in 2020, this cannot be forgotten. The Wisconsin polling error should not be forgotten. And if anything, the polls definitely are underestimating Tim Michaels in this race, in my opinion. And I think it's going to be enough for Tim Michaels to win by two. With Ron Johnson pulling him over the top, they're going to help each other to get over the top. And Mandela Barnes and Evers are going to both go down, in my opinion.
Okay.
So yeah, if you don't have
fine
an
with that.
opinion, then I guess we'll put this one into lean Republican. Then we have the final four, which we could really go anywhere. In my opinion, all four of these are equally as close.
Yeah, I think next we just gradually make our way to the west. Let's do Kansas.
Yeah. So let's do Kansas, I guess. In Kansas, we have obviously Laura Kelly, one of the incumbent Democrat governors in a deep red state, who won in 2018, riding that blue wave with her. And we have Derek Schmidt, who is the Attorney General of Kansas. And that's really interesting because he is a statewide elected official that's going to be a strong candidate against Laura Kelly. The polling again here has not been for one way or another. Of course, Echelon Insights, we already said, not the best pollster in the world, of course, but the only independent pollster here is Emerson College, and they have Kelly up too. And I think this one could go either way in a tilt margin. It's almost a true toss-up for me, so I will go whichever one you want to go here.
Okay, personally, okay, I think Laura Kelly's been doing great in Kansas. She's well approved of, and like I think, especially after that abortion referendum in Kansas, she might very well have the momentum to win this. But I will note in that Emerson poll, she was at 45 and the Republican was at 43. There's quite a bit of undecideds there. There's 8% undecided. I don't know. I think undecideds in Kansas, a deep red state, would be more likely to put the Republican than a Democrat, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I think I would put this tilt R, but I can still see it going blue in 2022. But I don't know. This is going to be really close, I think. I think, I mean, that's based off an analysis of essentially one poll. So, I mean, we definitely need more information in Kansas. But for now, I think for this rating, we're going to put it tilt Republican.
Yeah, I think Republicans definitely nominated. Probably one of the only people in Kansas that have a big shot of taking her down. So there we go in Kansas. Moving our way further west, we have Arizona.
Yeah, in Arizona, we have Arizona Secretary of State Katie Hobbs running against Republican Kari Lake. Kari Lake is a big MAGA Trump fan. Election is stolen person. Again, like kind of Doug Mastriano-esque. I think threat to democracy, but I mean Arizona has definitely been 50-50 in terms of recent polling here. We've seen Katie Hobbs winning some, Kari Lake winning some. But I will note, I think Kari Lake has been doing better recently. So I think I would put this tilt Republican because, like, if you look at the polling trend, I think Katie Hobbs is doing slightly better, but she used to be leading by like 3 or so in some polls. Now she's leading by 1, or Kari Lake's leading. In addition, I think this is partly a result of Katie Hobbs refusing to debate Kari Lake. I mean, the rationale behind there is some like rationale behind that. I mean, you don't want to debate someone who's going to spread misinformation during the debate as Secretary of State, but I don't know. I think the avoiding a debate was a bad move for Katie Hobbs, and ever since that, Kari Lake's been doing better.
Yeah, it's going to be quite ironic if Katie Hobbs loses this race because she refused to debate, and there goes the misinformation argument, right? Carrie Lake's going to be the
Yeah.
governor of Arizona, and I agree with you. I don't like Carrie Lake. I don't think she's great for America, but objectively looking here at the election polls, I think Carrie Lake's also favored by a tilt margin, almost into a lead margin. I think Carrie Lake's probably winning by a tilt margin for now. She's been outperforming Doug Mastriano by a ton.
I
Not
mean,
sure
not
why,
wait,
but
not Mastriano. You mean Masters, right?
no, but I mean Mastriano, as in the
Oh,
other
as in
MAGA
PA.
gubernatorial candidate.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
But she has
Definitely, definitely.
also been outperforming Masters. That's a good point. Both of them, she has been outperforming like crazy. So I think this one's still Republican for now. But
I do want to note something else here. Arizona recently enacted a civil, like basically civil war laws that completely banned abortion in the state. So I mean, that can definitely shift this race. I mean, we haven't really seen any reaction in the polls yet, but I think over the next few days, I mean, we'll have to see. But I mean, it is entirely possible that Katie Hobbs retakes this lead here. But
yeah,
for
we shall
now,
see.
tilt R.
Okay.
Next, Nevada.
Yeah. So I guess you can take Nevada.
Okay. In Nevada, we have Republican, I believe Joe Lombardo. He's a sheriff of the Las Vegas area, going up against incumbent Democratic Governor Steve Sisolak. Now, in recent polling, Republicans have been doing better in Nevada in both the Senate level and the governor. Oh my God, gubernatorial. Alvin, help me.
Gubernatorial. You can read this.
This has been me having that's a little thing I do from time to time. Apologies.
Gubernatorial.
In this governor election, Joe Lombardo's recently been polling better, and we've seen Republicans on all levels in Nevada polling better recently. I think this wave will apply to Joe Lombardo, and I think definitely it's, at least as of right now, a tilt Republican race.
Yeah, I think it almost could have been lean Republican. Although if we do look at this, do look at the betting odds here in Nevada. Last night we saw the debate or something in Nevada, which is really interesting. And Lombardo has been falling down in the betting odds, or not. This is the wrong one, but yeah, he's been falling even sharper than in the Senate. Apparently he stuttered or something last night. I'm not sure what's been going on in the predicted comment section here, but yeah, I guess this one is tilt Republican. Lombardo does have a good lead in the polls, but we'll see what happens. Nevada's always pro-choice, a lot more than the other swing states. We'll see how that goes. And then finally of Oregon. And in Oregon, it's been
This
really
is
interesting. This is
crazy.
probably the most interesting race in the entire nation right now. Oregon, we have the Democrat Tina Kotek, the Republican Christine Drazen, and the Independent Betsy Johnson, and they all somehow have a chance. Betsy Johnson has a much lower chance, of course, as the third party. But right before this video, this new poll dropped from Emerson College, putting Drazen up 2, which is in line with every single other poll that we've gotten since June. And I think finally, I am willing to put this one into tilt Republican. Right before this video, I was like, I'm going to put it in tilt Democrat. Undecideds are going to break for Kotek. She has the D next to her name. But since the Emerson poll dropped with that first A-rated pollster in Oregon, yeah, I think this one's tilt Republican now.
Okay, yeah. In this one, the independent Betsy Johnson has been screwing up a decent chunk of that normally Democratic vote. I believe, 30% of in the poll, according to the poll, like around 30% of Betsy Johnson supporters are Democrats, and that takes away from the Democrat. She took a few votes away from the Republican, but I think she is hurting Tina Kotek's chances of winning here. But I still think this race tilts for the Democrats. At the end of the day, I still believe this is Oregon, this is Portland, this is very liberal. It's a very liberal state. I think at the end of the day, undecideds will break for a Democrat in Tina Kotek over the Republican or Betsy Johnson. And also, I would also note in this Emerson poll, it showed Biden in a race against Trump, like around that race being at, I believe, 9 or 10 points. In Oregon, which I find kind of crazy.
Yeah.
That's like that's a pretty big shift from 2020. I just don't really buy it. I don't know. And
Yeah.
like, I mean, it could be a result of a lower sample size. It didn't only have 700, but I don't know. I could see it going to the Republican, especially with these leading to all these polls. But again, this is still Oregon. I'm finding a
Yeah,
hard
I
time to
agree.
believe. So I
Okay,
think
there
I
we
would put
go.
it till
I
D.
mean,
Which
you
way?
did give me Wisconsin and Georgia. I think let's just put this in tilt Democrat and call it a day. 29 for the Republicans, 21 for the Democrats. Thanks for watching, everyone. Like this video, subscribe, comment. Thanks for
Yes,
watching.
share with
Bye.
your friends. See ya.
See ya.